Once again, it is the Mr. Irrelevant podcast, although we don't go in fully on Mr. You'll figure that out in just a moment. Sometimes we are equal opportunity lenders because anyone can be irrelevant, no matter what your pronoun is. And Adair is our guest today. She's a fascinating case study for irrelevance, I guess you could say, because her background is just so interesting, so fascinating, and really kind of sets up to explain why you just sometimes have to believe in yourself and don't wait for somebody to come pin a medal on your chest and tell you you're doing great. You just have to go out and do sometimes. So if you're not aware, Ama is a renowned author in the thriller genre. She was a chief ward officer in the U.S. Navy, more than 20 years in the intelligence community. I mean, just an amazing military background. And all of a sudden, bang, she's this incredible writer that's getting plaudits all over the world. So, Ama, first of all, thank you so much for joining. I'm just really interested to dive right into your story about how you go from being in the intelligence community to just kind of saying, I think I'll be a writer instead. That is quite the pivot. And I know it wasn't a hard pivot because you were doing both for a while.
That's true. It's like, and after that intro, I don't know if you really need me to talk. It's like,
I'll just leave.
Mic drop and just kind of walk out. But thanks for having me. I most certainly took the path less traveled in every regard. For me, the military was never in the cards in the first place. So I guess maybe the pivot wasn't all that strange to me because I'd already done a pretty dramatic pivot. But you've probably heard, people talk about, the military can take a toll, physical, mental, emotional toll. And, we all find different ways of coping and dealing with it. So, I like to joke that, I found a place for the voices in my head on the page. And I started writing as just a way to kind of deal with some of the what ifs that were in my head. I had this scene that kept popping in my head all the time that was based on something I experienced on a deployment. And I figured, well, why not? Let's give her a shot, put the metaphoric pen to paper, so to speak. And I just started writing. And once I stopped battling the process and let my characters talk for themselves, suddenly I had a book on my hands. And once I had that, I was like, well, I guess we'll figure out what this publishing thing's like. And, I did what every nerd does. I went and I got a book and I started doing research and started, old school, just like, okay, here's how I write a query letter and here's how I go about doing this process. And I guess you could say that's all she wrote. Pun absolutely intended.
Right. Well done. Well done. So there's a certain element of verisimilitude in this podcast and that it sounds like I'm in a war zone. I'm not. I'm actually in London, and they're just doing a lot of construction outside my hotel. So I'm just explaining that. But for you really were in Baghdad. You're really holding an M4. You're outside the green zone in a convoy, and that all eventually makes it, like you say, into a pen and onto paper. Mm-hmm. At the time you're rolling through, though, on that convoy, and you're thinking, man, this looks like a movie. Are you thinking in real time, like, I should write a book? Or did that just kind of come a little bit after you had gotten back to safe harbor?
I would say once, your blood pressure comes back down, you have to let the rushing through your ears and, you get your breathing back to normal before your brain starts functioning in any other direction other than, just kind of instinct. The fight or flight kicks in and, you really don't start thinking about the grander scheme until later. But after that event, that's when the what ifs, as dark as they can get, the what ifs start jumping into my head. And instead of letting the what ifs take me down a really, really bad thought process, I used a creative turn to be able to deal with some of the darker thoughts and, to deal with, I think Lee Child said it best. He created Jack Reacher as a way to, do all the things he can't actually do in real life. So for me, my protagonist, Ella Anderson, she became kind of that for me. It was a cathartic way of doing and saying all the things that I would not actually do. Though I have been accused of, people know me, read my characters and go, oh, I could totally see you doing that. I'm like, really? Not intentional.
Yeah, you're braver on the page than you are, I guess, in real life sometimes. But aren't we all doing that, though, in a way? I mean, everybody says fake it till you make it, and that's such a cliche. but whether it's being in the military, whether it's writing a book, whether it's just getting through your day, is there an element of that that still rings true for you?
It absolutely rings true. And I think everybody who's creative goes through some variation of it, because even the most talented people in the world, we look at them like, oh, they've got it all figured out. But you hear any single one of them talk, and they all have been through some type of obstacle, trial, imposter syndrome. We all go through it. And because you put so much of your heart and soul into things you create, that once it's released into the world, there's automatic anxiety, at least on my part. And the knowledge that the thing that you love is now open for scrutiny. It takes some guts, and it takes some resilience and fortitude to be able to keep doing it, because, it's not always easy.
No. And you mentioned imposter syndrome, and I'm just wondering, because look, alphabetically, you're going to come first. That's before James Carr. That's before Dean Koontz. That's before James Patterson. You're first on the bookshelf. So when you start scrolling and you're just kind of doing that little thing at a Barnes and Noble, does that jump out at you at all? You're like, oh my gosh, like I'm the first one in this genre.
Actually, my friend Tracy Aberson would actually be before me. We joke because anytime we go to conferences and they put us in alphabetical for like the signings afterwards, we're always right next to each other. It's like, hey, the A's. This is where all the cool kids hang out. Really, it's surreal to be rubbing shoulders with the people that I've admired for as long as I can remember. To be able to talk craft and to just be able to hang out, because at the end of the day, we're all people, but be able to hang out with literary greats and the people who I'm like, I have your book at home, can you sign this for me please? I still nerd out. I am still a fan first, and I think that's the way I look at it, is like I get to do something awesome, and I get to be surrounded by the people I truly admire.
When we talk about, and I hate to keep going back to irrelevance, it's almost like you're saying things are going great, and I'm like, but are they? And I don't mean it that way, but to this issue that we're discussing here in this podcast, it's very much about finding that strength and that voice to render yourself not as irrelevant as someone is trying to tell you. Maybe it's even yourself that's telling you that. Do you get a certain amount of angst when an editor is hitting you back and you're thinking like, okay, here comes the red pen. You're going to tell me what I'm doing wrong. Everything I'm doing is not right. How do you deal with an editor?
So I am very fortunate. I experienced what it was like to deal with bad editors before I got my current editor. So I know what a good editor does. Now, let me preface that by saying she is not nice to me. She is what I need. And so when she breaks out that red pen of death, I feel every single stroke, and it hurts so bad, but I trust her. We have a relationship now. So usually what I end up having to do is, crawl under my desk, curl up in a fetal position, lick my wounds for a little bit, and then I come back out focused and get to work, because I know she's just trying to make me better. For me, maybe, this goes to your podcast. I am one of those people that I view anybody who would look at me like I'm irrelevant through two lenses. It's two sides of the same coin. If it's somebody I'm an ally with, that can hurt me. And that is something that I feel like I have to fight it back against. For example, if somebody were to come up to me and say, hey, we got this role for you, but it requires a whole lot of running. And we know you hate running, so we're not going to put you in it. And I'm like, okay, you are making that decision based on the fact that you know me as an individual. I hate running. But then if somebody were to come up to me and just kind of go, we'd offer it to you, but you're a girl, so you can't run. Then all of a sudden, like, my hackles go up, and I'm like, I'm about to break everything in my body to prove you wrong. And I kind of view that the same way as, doing anything creative. Like, anytime somebody tells me I can't do it, or you shouldn't do it, or that's not the way we do things, the line, this is the way we've always done it, that will get me going. And that I feel like I have to push myself to get through that. The flip side of that is anybody who already thought I couldn't do it, or somebody who underestimated me, I view that as an advantage. In the military, it was a tactical advantage. Now it's still tactical, but it gives me a leg up because then I have all the latitude and all the cards are mine to play.
Yeah, I love that too. And, with your military background, one thing I find really interesting on the subject of irrelevance is, and I'm not military, but it seems like there's kind of this conception out there, a perception that the nail that sticks out gets the hammer. You don't want to be the one that's doing anything out of line. You're supposed to march in step. Literally, you're not supposed to be relevant. All of you are supposed to be a various shade of irrelevant to serve a greater good. So is that something that you had to kind of work through, that it's okay to sparkle, it's okay to shine and not just be, wearing this camouflage that everybody else is wearing too in my unit?
It wasn't so much it was okay to sparkle and shine. It really was the way you're doing it doesn't work, and change is not something to be afraid of. So I did 21 years, and I joke a lot that I was a terrible sailor because there's so much about being in the military that I just never fully assimilated. So I maintained a significant amount of my stubbornness and individuality, but that let me be better at my job. So I might not have been the cookie cutter sailor that they wanted me to be, but I became fantastic at my job, and which was great because I was the first one doing it. So that let me push that line in the sand that everybody has. It's like, okay, you can do this, but you can't go any further. Like I would push a little further. And every time somebody let me get a little further, that would leave the door open for everybody who was behind me. So I know it's one of the most satisfying things I have about my time in service is that I know all the kids that are coming behind me have so many more opportunities and are doing such great things because I was that stubborn person who refused to accept the status quo. And generally, yes, that's not something the military likes, but it was a risk I was willing to take.
I'm thinking, again, on this topic, when you were at a book signing, and I know you've been at a few, do you ever fight the whole thing about, wow, there's more people at somebody else's table, or I was expecting 1,000 people and only 12 showed up, therefore I'm not as relevant as I thought I might be? Or do you just kind of go with the flow and be like, okay, well, not as many people know this book as I thought today?
That's the way I think about it now. The first time it happened, it was kind of that you get the sad puppy thing, like, oh man, I was trying so hard. I would just somebody come and talk to me. And then eventually it got to the point where I realized how many authors there are, how many stories there are. And it's impossible, like really, truly impossible for anybody to be able to keep track of everything that's going on, even in one genre. So I started looking at it as just an opportunity. It's an opportunity to sit and chit chat with other people in my field. And, if I get one person who comes up and says, hey, I'm going to check your stuff out, that's one more person who had never heard of me before who's now going to do it. But we did have a pretty funny moment where a buddy of mine was sitting right next to Mark Greaney, who I adore. He's an amazing human being and one of my favorite authors. But because he was sitting next to Mark Greaney, nobody was waiting to sign with him, and there's a line like all the way across the convention floor for Mark Greaney, and they took a photo of it and be like, what it's like when you sit next to Mark Greaney at the book signing. So everybody feels it, but once you get to that point where you understand that it's a good thing because it just means there's a crap ton of great authors and a crap ton of great stories, and as a reader first, that's what I want more than anything.
And as accomplished of an author as you've turned out to be, and you just keep cranking these books out like Pez out of a Pez dispenser, it's amazing to me. You must get writer's block, though, every once in a while. How do you overcome that? And I'm asking for a million authors out there. What's the secret to pushing through that?
So I still battle with this, even though I know exactly how to get through it. And it sounds overly simple, but it really is to just keep writing. It doesn't matter what you write. It doesn't matter if it's English. It doesn't matter if it is an absolute load of crap. Give yourself permission to write crap, but just keep writing, because somewhere in the process of that crap, you're going to get right back on track, and then you're going to go. Because your first draft, you can't look at it as this has to be perfect. It will never be perfect, and it shouldn't be perfect, because you're going to go back and you're going to edit and rewrite so many times, you're going to get sick of that manuscript. Let yourself do that. Enjoy the process. So just write. Even if you just sit there and write hi over and over and over again, or start typing your dogs and kids' names, something, just keep moving, keep typing. And if you have any thought in your head about the story, run with it, because then you can change it. You can edit anything except an empty page.
Interesting. And on that movement of getting to finality, when you're just about done and you're thinking, okay, like now I'm ready to send this off. Do you ever get that fear of hitting send on your laptop, even if it's just to your editor, or even a social media post or an email? I mean, I every once in a while, I know I get this fear of like, should I really hit this button or not? Do you find that too sometimes?
Every single time, I hate social media. I use it because you got to be where people want you to be. So I do, but every time, every post, I scrutinize it, and I get massive anxiety every time I hit post, because I just, man, it gets me. When I send things to my editor, I do have that, oh, I hope she's going to be proud of me moment. It's like, it really has become a very collaborative relationship. And I am very proud to say, this is not a boast, but I'm very proud to say that over the course of the years, each manuscript I send her, there's less markups. So I am learning. And so every time I send her something, I'm like, fingers crossed. Is this finally going to be the one where she doesn't crush my soul? But it's also, I couldn't imagine putting out a book without her now. Lisa Sarasoli is the best editor I could ever ask for. And she's made me into a bit of an addict. I kind of need her opinion now.
And it sounds like you surround yourself too, Emma, with people who pump you up. And if your spirits do sag and you're feeling irrelevant, that there are people in your life, whether it's your kids, whether it's your husband, whether it's friends in the industry, that will remind you like, hey, you've done some things.
And I am extremely fortunate in that regard, because when I put my first book out, I thought maybe my mom will read it. And actually, then I thought twice about that. It's like, my mom's not going to enjoy this book. This is not her genre. But, both my parents read it. So I was like, hey, I got two instead of just the one. But I am very fortunate that I have a very supportive community behind me. It, not just the writers community, which is really great, but I have the military community, my friends, my family, and my 13-year-old, she hasn't decided she hates me yet. So right now, she is my biggest fan. So
love it. Well, yeah, treasure that while you got that.
I know. She's a teenager, so it's time is tripping.
Yeah, could all change in an hour. I get it. Last one for you, Emma, and thank you so much for the generosity of your time. Just to kind of put a bow around it, and it's a classic end of interview kind of question, but if you do have a set of parameters or advice for people who might have that inner gremlin that's saying, man, I'm not feeling it, and I don't know if it's worth it or I'm worth it, what are the words that you say to people who are struggling with that?
Wow, that is something everybody experiences. So first of all, you are not alone. Everybody, New York Times bestsellers, directors who've won Oscars, actors who won Oscars, they all still 100% feel it. But just remember why you want to do it in the first place, because nobody picks up, well, I hope nobody picks up things like writing in hopes of being a multimillionaire. Generally, you pick it up because you have a love for it. So just remember why you love it and not what you're hoping is going to come out of it. It should always be about what's it doing for you? What's the process doing for you? And if it's making you happy, then that is all that you need. Everything else is just a bonus.
Brilliant. And for those who haven't picked up one of the L. Anderson novels or Shadow Game or any of these, I mean, it's worth it. And this is a great writer, a great human being, generous of time and spirit. Thank you, Amos, so much. I think you helped a lot of people today.
I hope so. And thank you so much for having me on. This was fun.
Love it. And just so that you all tell your friends, by the way, it is called the Mr. Irrelevant podcast. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Outstanding.